The challenge was when TikTok and, Instagram Reels came out. Okay, how do I fit this really big, complicated concept into like 30 seconds or less? It really just became a matter of, okay, what are you trying to talk about? Now make it stupid. Now make it stupider. Now make it even stupider than that. And then that's what you're going to shoot for the video.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Videocraft show presented by Husky. I am Jon Santiago, and every other week I interview content creators about their stories, strategies, and experiences of building an online audience through video. Now, stop selling and start educating. That is the approach to video taken by this week's guest on the Videocraft show presented by Husky. Caton Del Rosario is the co-founder and director of marketing at American Mortgage Network, a 100% employee-owned lending company. They offer a full suite of mortgage products for clients, including conventional, adjustable, government, and jumbo loans. Now, purchasing a home, especially for most first-time buyers, can be scary and overwhelming. And that's why Caton has made it his mission to simplify the process in terms that people can understand. And these days, he's doing that primarily through video. He started with long-form content on YouTube a few years ago, but it's his short-form, digestible videos on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and now YouTube Shorts that are helping him reach brand new audiences. In this episode, I chat with Caton about his strategy in regards to video, as well as the surprising origins of his own creativity. This was actually the most pleasant surprise and pleasant parts of this conversation for me. And I think you're going to enjoy that and notice it in my face as well when it comes up. The simple yet effective practice that prevents Caton from never running out of new ideas for new content, and the percentage of revenue he's actually generating for his mortgage company through his videos. You can make videos all you want, but if you're trying to make money as a creator, you got to tie it to some sort of business KPI, and Caton is definitely doing that. We've got all of those things discussed and so much more on this episode of the Videocraft show presented by Husky. Let's go ahead and now toss it to my conversation with Caton Del Rosario. Caton Del Rosario, thank you so much, my friend, for joining me on this episode of the Videocraft show presented by Husky. Pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here, my man.
Thank you so much for doing this. We were chatting a little bit before starting the recording and talking about how I prepared for this conversation. Listen to a couple of, we'll listen to one other podcast interview that you were on, and then, was reading an interview that you did, I believe, with sdvoyager.com. And, it's been a couple years now that you've been with the lending company that you work with now. And I mean, business has been doing well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the market, if for anyone who's even tried to buy a home in the last few years, has been crazy, which has been great for mortgage lending. But I mean, I was also a first time home buyer last year, so I got to be in the thick of it as well. So it's a fun time. I'll put it that way.
Now, what is that experience like for you, being a first-time home buyer and then having the knowledge base that you already have working in the mortgage industry? Did you feel confident, or were there still moments where, as a first-time home buyer, you're like, I'm not sure how this is going to play out? Right.
No, I mean, very, very much both. Right. I mean, from a financing side, I knew I was good, but there's always that weird thought in the back of your head. And it maybe just comes with actually doing it for yourself, where it's what if everything hits the fan right now and I can't buy this house? Like what then, kind of thing. So there's always that nagging anxiety, and you don't really free yourself from that. Even knowing everything that I know about the process, knowing that I was good, having to reassure my wife, we're going to be fine. We're going to get the house. Don't worry. That feeling doesn't really go away until you're actually sitting in your own home, holding your keys, and you're like, oh, okay, no, it was fine. But yeah, there were moments where I was like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. And I imagine too, having a good realtor helps out with that, because they're able to, calm your nerves when things get a little bit hairy from time to time?
Oh yeah, huge. I mean, our realtor is one of our closest friends who works with us at IMNet as well. So I mean, he made it super, super easy and super simple. Having a good realtor in general, like regardless of like your level of experience with home buying, is such a huge thing because, you know, you have a trusted professional in your corner that you can kind of turn to at like any hour, not any hour, don't abuse it, to answer, you know, those nagging questions when you're laying in bed at night, like wondering like, am I going to lose all my money and I'm not going to live in this home and I'm going to be renting out of a box forever? Like it's such a great resource and they're free to use. So like, why not?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're working on their commission. My dad is a real estate agent actually up in the Bay Area. So, you know, I know the way that he works in terms of making himself super available to his clients almost at any time. So it's definitely an intense type of job for some people to work in, but you know, the best ones definitely make the experience worth your while, especially 100%. Like you said, once you have those keys in your hands and you're actually in your home, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, you forget every like weird thing that happened along the way and you're just like happy to start making like good memories in the place.
Yeah. Any weird things happen to you along your journey to buying your first home?
No, honestly, mine was pretty vanilla. I mean, we bought with new construction, so that made it like super easy. I think we actually kind of like jumped ahead of the line. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say that, but we were just like talking to the sales office like all the time. Like, we really love this plan. We love this community. And this particular unit is one that we had our eyes on. Like, I wanted this particular unit because of like the location and everything. And we didn't get it initially. And then 2 days later, we get a call from the sales office. Hey, the person who's going to buy it backed out. You guys want it? And like, I was like doing the math in my head, like from where they said we were on the list versus how many people were interested in it. I was like, no, she pulled a favor. So like, that was like weird, but cool because it was like initially like, oh, okay, we didn't get it. We're just going to wait a little bit longer or whatever. And then we got it. So that was cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to have to talk. We're definitely going to be talking more about this stuff related to real estate and mortgages and lending and all of that, since that is your expertise and that is what you are teaching people through the video content that you're making online. But before we dive more deeply into that, I want to talk more about, you know, obviously your background and where you come from. I know that you're Filipino. I'm also Filipino. So, you know, I feel like we identify each other pretty well. When we're in like a room with one another, you're like, that person's Filipino. Let's go talk to each other and be friends. Yes, we have carried that from our relatives who immigrated here from the Philippines to the US. But I'm curious about growing in a Filipino household. Was creativity something that was encouraged as you were growing up?
Yeah, totally. No. So this is a cool nugget for like all of your like Filipino viewers. And like, I think you're going to be like super cool about this too. Like my parents were not like the stereotypical dad's in the Navy, mom's a nurse kind of situation at all. My dad was actually a pretty like well-renowned Filipino songwriter. Like he wrote the hits. I'm talking, you know, Bakit Naman Ka
Who's your dad?
Nandito Ko, Aaron Paul. You look him up. He, you know, like it was growing up was cool because like I got to like be in the same room as like legends like Ogie Alcacid, you know, Regine Velasquez. Richard Reynoso actually is like my legal godfather. He like begged my dad apparently. So creativity was from day one was absolutely encouraged in the household because I had like this legendary songwriter as a father. So he was encouraging creativity and like, especially on the musical side, like a lot growing up. I didn't really follow that path entirely. Like I, you know, do music and stuff. My sister, amazing, is about to graduate from her theater program in college right now. She's absolutely going to make it to Broadway one day. So I'm so excited for that. But no, it was never it was never like a pressure to kind of follow a particular path. I mean, there was a little bit, right? You know, being a first generation immigrant from the Philippines, you know, like you have to do well in school, get good grade, you know, like there was that pressure for sure. But in terms of like, okay, well, what do you want to do with that? There was never a pressure to be like down a particular path. And I think that gave me a lot of freedom, and I'll never, ever take that for granted as a first generation Filipino American, that my parents kind of gave me that freedom, discipline for sure, but a freedom to be like, okay, like you did what we asked. Now you can do what you want to do.
Now, does your dad, in terms of looking at what you're doing today with having, almost like a bit of a conventional career in the mortgage industry, but now marrying it with this like creative artistic side where your videos, man, they're on point. We just had a prospect the other day come in and say, hey, I actually discovered you through Caton's videos, who I saw on my Instagram Reels feed, and I wanted to know who was making them. But yeah, to go back to my question there, is that what does your dad think about how you're able to kind of meld these two worlds together, if you've had a chance to talk to him about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I talk to him all the time, and he loves it. He's always super impressed with what I'm doing, and I think having that support, like even now, is like a big part of like why I'm able to like continue to do what I want to do, and having that freedom. And in like I'm like taking mental notes as like I'm preparing to have like a family one day. Like it's like, okay, like that's the kind of like stuff that I want to instill in my children, that freedom and like that support. Like regardless, I feel like even regardless of what I did, like he would have like supported me 100%. Like my sister, obviously he's super like ecstatic about, he goes to all her shows and like is giving her like post performance notes and stuff of like, what she thinks improves. But like having that like support from, and like any first generation immigrant or POC watching this can probably like feel that, like, like having that support from a parent is so huge.
Yeah. I also wonder too, in terms of being, a fellow Asian American, a Filipino American, how much have you been inspired or motivated to do stuff where you're front facing on camera because you didn't see people like us on mainstream television?
Right. No, I think that's a lot of it. Right. I mean, I had the luxury, I guess, like in like the later part of high school, early college, of like being like connected to like that early YouTube scene. Like, I'd played a few shows with, like for your Filipino audience, like AJ Rafael, Jesse Barrera.
Oh yeah.
Albert Postis. If you know Albert Postis, he was literally my best friend in high school. Like our birthdays are 2 days apart.
Do you know Gabe Bondoc and Jeremy Monongdo?
I've met them in like at like shows and stuff. I'd say I love them. I don't know them like personally. Like I don't know if I walked into a room, I'd say what's up, they'd like know who I was. Like I'm just like for them, like I'm like super fanboy about, for sure. But like being like seeing that, right? And I'm sure you relate to this too. Like in that early YouTube era, like 08, 09, right? Seeing other Filipino Americans, Asian Americans, doing stuff on YouTube at a, at the time and still today, like a pretty high level, was encouraging, right? Cause there were no really big, like obvious Filipino artists in America at the time. So like seeing somebody on stage performing or on YouTube performing and, expressing themselves like this, it was really cool. And I think there was like this big like moment where like the entire Filipino community like revolved around, these artists and started creating more and more and more. And now you see a ton more artists in the States.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just from an Asian American perspective, right? Like the early days of that same era is when you had like Wong Fu Productions. They're still doing great work to this day. I believe Philip Wong just co-authored a great book about the history of Asian American pop culture from like the 1990s up until today, which is a book I would like to read. And then like the Kev Jumbas of the world, the Ryan Higas, like before Mr. Beast.
Right. Like Timothy De La Ghetto, right?
Timothy De La
Ghetto. Made it so Wild and Out. And that was like the moment for us. It was like, oh, okay, like we can make that leap from like just being like cool on YouTube to like being cool in real life. Yes. Not to say that it wasn't cool in real life, but like making that leap, like that was huge. Cause then like, talking about like Wong Fu films, like, like actors there like are now like in Hollywood, like Simu Liu, like in Shang-Chi, like you're seeing, Asian American creatives and actors and artists and everything making that leap to that next level and becoming more prominent. And I think that's so exciting to see. It's taken time, granted, but I think like, what the video platforms have done for us, allowing us to have a voice, allowing us to connect with people who look like us, and seeing ourselves in media now has given people a little more courage to get in front of a camera and want to do the same.
Exactly. Yeah. Got to shout out Aquafina as well. She started on YouTube, and then look at where she is now. She's incredible. She's a big star in Hollywood. But it's like when I think back to that era of YouTube, it makes me feel like, oh, I remember being at that time thinking, oh, it's so cool to see these Asian American people doing stuff on YouTube, because there's no other platform where you would see people like us. Like we weren't going to be a guest star on How I Met Your Mother or Friends, or
like you'll be a token character at best.
Yes.
But like the only other place you're seeing Asian Americans, Filipino Americans specifically on a screen was if your parents bought TFC. So like that was the only situation where you were on a screen and you identified with somebody on there.
Yes, exactly. And TFC or GMA these days, that's the my grandma had a perpetual subscription
That was the
ABS-CBN.
only thing that was
Only thing on when you go to your grandma's house is TFC.
Absolutely.
That's what's on in her room.
Right.
Oh man, yeah, we can definitely relate on that level. Well, I want to also circle back on just the inspiration that you got from the exposure to a lot of these like great Filipino artistas, from the Philippines. Like name the people, if you're not Filipino, you probably don't recognize those names. I mean, the funny thing is you would probably know Regine Velasquez from Disney, because I believe wasn't Regine Velasquez the singing voice of Jasmine in
I think you're thinking Lea Salonga.
Oh, Lea Salonga.
Lea Salonga, who's also a close family friend for sure. Which was so cool for like my sister, like, having a real Broadway talent as like somebody that like my dad would send like her videos to, which was so cool to see. But yeah, no, like having all of that, right. And being surrounded by that. Because for me, like I really didn't understand it because I didn't really grow up in like a predominantly like Filipino like upbringing until like middle school. Like I was the only Asian kid in my school up until like the 6th grade when I switched schools. So for me, it was kind of normal. Like I was like, oh, this is just normal. Like these are my aunties and uncles, like whatever. Yeah. Like I definitely took it for granted. Like it wasn't until middle school, like high school, where it clicked, and I was like, oh wait, no, this is actually kind of like a really like unique and special experience that I get to be a part of. I should probably like take advantage of like being in these circles and like kind of getting to know these people. But no, yeah, I think being in those circles and like meeting those artists and, creatives, and even just like having my dad who like I said, like even just him alone, like knowing the prolific nature of the songs that he's put out, definitely gave me like the courage and the freedom to be like, yeah, okay, I could do that too. Like some way, somehow, right? Like I definitely dabbled in music. I was good. I was never like good enough to be like there. And I identified that pretty early on, which was good. But, I was able to like figure out, okay, like what am I good at? Like I fell into mortgage, just randomly. So I decided to marry that. I was like, well, okay, well, I'm like good on video. I know how to do like marketing stuff and social media. Let's see if I can marry that together. It's panned out. So, no, I think a lot of that has to do with it for sure.
Awesome. Well, what are some things that you learned specifically? Are there any key takeaways that you can maybe, I guess, conclude, I guess, from that experience and upbringing in your life from those group of people that you were exposed to?
I got to be like in the room, like in the creative process. So I got to see a lot of like my dad, like writing songs, with these artists and kind of going through that process. And what I realized is, he was a prolific songwriter, but there were so many songs that never made it all the way. Right. So as a creative, it's one of those things that's always kind of in the back of my head. Like you just have to put stuff out. Right. Like you can spend as much time as you want trying to perfect it. And to an extent, like I still have that where I like wanted to be like perfect, but the market's going to, at the end of the day, decide what's a hit and what's not a hit, right? Like you can spend all this time, writing a perfect song, trying to come up with the perfect hook, the melody, and, making it sound amazing in the studio. And then you put it out on the record. And if no one listens to it, well, then like, okay, well, that's it. On to the next one though, right? It's always on to the next one. It's never dwelling on that, like, oh, it wasn't a hit. Like, oh, well, it's on to that next one. All right. Like, what's the next song that we're going to write? Maybe that one's going to be the next hit. And you keep on writing and writing and writing until you get to that one. So the same way for my content is like, I've always kind of like had that like perfectionist vibe where I want to be like, I want to make it perfect. I want to make it like great. But I think the big unlock, I don't remember who told me, it was like done is better than perfect. Right. So you put the content out there and you see how the audience responds, and then you adjust accordingly, not try to make it perfect, and then put it out because you are just know it's going to be like a hit, and then it doesn't, and it flops, but you wasted all this time making it perfect. So if I took anything away from being around that, it was seeing that back end of the creative process and seeing how comfortable they were with understanding that not every song you write is going to be the one that sends you like to the moon.
Yeah. And it's always the ones that surprise you that you weren't expecting that end up taking off, right? You know,
right.
It's that in music for your dad, and it's that in content creation for you. Like, you're never really quite sure which of your videos is going to give you like some sort of nexus moment, I guess, in your own journey.
And you never get too high off of the big ones either, right? I think that's like another big thing. Like my dad's an incredibly humble person. Like, if I, like, just knowing like where he's at, like in like the nexus of like Filipino fame, and like just seeing how he carries himself in like any average room, like, you know, he's not too full of himself for like what he's done. He's always incredibly humble about it. He's very, very much a gracious person. And, you know, you don't want to get too high off your own supply too. There's that level of like humility and also awareness that you're only as good as your last. Kind of thing. So continuing to create and continuing to pivot and get better, I think is like such a huge thing for creators too. Cause it's easy to get high off that one big viral video. And then you have like ones that just don't do well. And then you kind of get like disappointed. Just continuing to go. Like, I had like, you know, a reel that I thought it was like super sick and like there's a lot of engagement, but it's like got like 600 views versus the last one that was $6,000. I'm like, okay, whatever, shoot another one.
Yeah, no. And that's something that a lot of creators, they learn that through the experience of creating. Like, from my conversations with other creators that have come on this podcast, that is, you know, initially they get into it chasing that like adrenaline rush from like the attention that they get. And then as they keep going, it's almost like, you know, for lack of better terms, they're being like a drug addict, addicted to the attention that the audience is giving you. And then when a video flops and you don't get the views that you were hoping for or that you were expecting, you come crashing down. And it takes like most creators several cycles of that to realize I need to detach myself from the outcome here of what actually happens and just focus on creating. But you sound like you're somebody who, fortunately for you, you have had people in your life who've gone through that process before. Right. And could give you that wisdom so that you could put that into practice from the jump.
Absolutely. And I think that's the big thing. And it's like, and not to say that I didn't already like also go through that myself too, like early on, like in my like short-lived music career and also in, you know, creating content. You know, there is that adrenaline rush from like wanting to be like those big creators like Mr. Beast and like what that can do for your life. Right. Because content creation is something that can absolutely change your life. It only takes one video to do it. But I think we're all chasing that one video and we always think that the next video is going to be the one that'll get us there. In reality, that's not the case. What I've really learned and figured out is, you know, lead with value. If you're doing this to be famous, like you're probably not going to be famous. Like very select few are charismatic and attractive enough to just go into it to be famous and actually do it. For the rest of us, you actually have to provide value. You have to be a valuable resource to people, especially in like my field where frankly, mortgage is a commodity. Like a million people who do mortgages for you. Like, so what's to separate me from, you know, you walking into your local Wells Fargo and walking up to the teller and asking for a mortgage, right? So leading with value and trying to be a resource and to entertain people versus trying to be super famous, make a ton of money off of them. Once you make that like mental shift, then you start actually, number one, having fun doing it. Number two, you actually start making valuable content because you're making it with the purpose of being a valuable resource, not just trying to be famous. And then three, because you did those two things first, be entertaining and be valuable, then all of a sudden people are coming to you and now you have an audience. Like that audience thing comes after you give them something to want. Like if you just want to like have a big audience to have a big audience without any value, like no one's going to pay attention.
Yeah, it becomes the success afterwards seems like it just becomes a byproduct of giving away free value or free knowledge to people that can help them along their journey, because you just build trust with an audience. They see you as somebody who knows what you're talking about.
Right.
So why wouldn't I bring my business to Caton if I'm looking for a mortgage?
Right.
Like, he's already shared so much information with me now and hasn't asked for anything in return. I want to go and work with this guy. Like, I think that's how people ultimately, they may not be thinking that explicitly, but that's kind of just what's going on, maybe subliminally at a subconscious level when people are consuming your content.
Exactly that.
Exactly. So let's talk about your journey into becoming, a mortgage consultant.
Yeah.
How did you get into this field, and what interested you in it in the first place?
I absolutely fell into it. I wasn't looking to get into mortgage. Mortgage was never on my radar. I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, people did. Like, I knew people bought houses and like they got loans for it. I didn't know it was like a career. I mean, I figured that somebody had to do it, but no, I mean, like, to be frank, I was like super unemployed for like several months, sending out my resume to anyone who would give me an interview. Somehow I landed in the office of this mortgage company here in San Diego. I completely BS my way through it. I was like, oh yeah, mortgages. My mom and dad owned a home once. Like, to this day, I still have no idea why they called me back for a second one.
Especially being as young as you are.
Yeah.
Like, you're still a young guy. Like, they probably sense you were in there trying to impress them.
I was
he's
full
just
of
a young,
shit. I was a 23-year-old full of shit. I was no reason in hell that any sane mortgage company should hire, but they gave me a chance, and that's all I needed to run with. So sure enough, fell in love with doing it. Found out I was actually good at it. Went on to be Rookie of the Year that year at that company. Left that company for an opportunity that was a little bit closer to home, paid a little bit better, but that mortgage company folded. Then went the independent route for a little bit as a mortgage broker. Then met up with, being in the mortgage industry, it's kind of like a big small town. Like, there's a lot of people in it, but everyone kind of knows each other after a while. So I got connected through, like, this mortgage marketing group, with this guy named Joseph, who's now the CEO of our company. And, we became friends. We were talking about, wanting to make a company. Like, why isn't there a company that exists that does like XYZ? Like, there's always like trade-offs between different like models and branches. So after talking a while, like, he had experience building mortgage companies in the past. He was almost done with it, actually. But I guess for whatever reason, me being like a younger mortgage person kind of like reinvigorated it in his like passion for it. And we got to talking and we're like, well, this thing doesn't exist and we're never going to find it. Why don't we just build it ourselves? And it's like, you're crazy. Let's do it. So, cause I was like, to be honest, like, I was like, I'm like 20, at the time I was like, what, 27? I was like, I'm 27. Like, when's the next time I'm going to have the opportunity to say that I built a mortgage company from scratch? Like, that's a really cool opportunity. Like, in your like mid to late, at any time, frankly. But especially as like a 20-something-year-old, like, cool, I get to build a mortgage company from scratch with like a bunch of my friends. Yeah, why not? Right? Because if it fails, like, I can always just be a mortgage loan officer. I'll get hired anywhere. Like, I knew I was good enough, but like, this was a unique opportunity for me to try something. And I mean, so far we've been extremely successful. We just got actually voted, to National Mortgage News's, list of the top 50 best mortgage companies to work for, which after 3 years is like an incredible accomplishment. And I owe it to every single person who's part of our company. Because that's just insane to me. That we've gotten that kind of recognition so early on, and we're just getting started. So that's like the Cliff's Notes version of it. But yeah, that's how I got to where I was now. I had no intention of doing mortgage when I graduated college, but I'm here now. So it's exciting.
Where did you imagine yourself going or envision yourself going when you graduated college? Did you think that the music thing would pop off for yourself, or did you have other visions or ideas about where you wanted your life to head?
Yeah, I mean, Definitely like the music thing, like being so tied to like, especially like all the Filipino creatives. I was like, okay, well, if the music career never pans out in the States, then I'm just going to go to the Philippines and go do something there.
Yes.
So that was always like in the back of my head. Like if all else fails, I'll just go to the Philippines. I feel like that's every like first generation, like Filipino too. Like,
which you could have also, if the music thing didn't work out there, you probably could have got into acting too.
Right. Like acting or
politics
something.
or something.
Worst case, we'll just join the Navy. Like solid backup plans. I was really into computers, in college. I actually originally went for computer engineering. Found out that I liked it, but probably not enough for it to be a job. Which now, like with like all the tech companies, like part of me is like, that would have been interesting to be in tech during this time, like building the metaverse or whatever. But no, I love mortgages. It's just so much more fun on a day-to-day basis and a little less, I don't know, not to say that coding is mundane, but for me and my brain that's going a million miles an hour all the time, I don't know if I could sit at a desk and write code 10 hours a day. Not my style. So those were like the main things on my radar for sure. I actually switched majors in college to business, which I use almost nothing of. And I think most business majors can probably agree, who didn't get their MBA. So had to get the asterisk in there. No, so like mortgages were like never on my radar really. Those were like the things that I saw myself doing. I was like, maybe I'll go into music. Maybe I'll go into computer engineering. Maybe I'll just join the Navy and just do that thing. But ending up here was never on the radar, but I don't think I could be any happier at the same time.
Now, we touched on this a little bit a moment ago about just how young you were, and you still are. Like, it's not like you're an old guy here. I mean, how old are you? You're like in your early 30s.
I'm 30.
Now at this point.
I'm 30.
Yeah, so you've still got a long way to go. And of course, being Filipino and Asian, you're going to look like that.
I'm going to look 21 until I'm like 70, and then I'll look 100.
Exactly. I just had that conversation with a bunch of people I met the other night. I'm like, this is how I'm going to look until I'm like 80.
Yeah.
So,
and then we hit a train and then it just like, it's all down. We lose like 6 inches off our height somehow. Don't know.
Yes. We become like ancient old people at some point, just drops off. But, being at such a young age and going into this industry, do you feel that your job helped you mature faster as a person, or did you already bring a level of maturity to that job? Oh, yeah, no, definitely was super immature coming in. I'm not even gonna lie about that at all. Definitely had to have that like experience of like trying to like mature myself like through the job, because I mean, this industry, the average age of a loan officer is somewhere in like their late 40s, early 50s. Like that's the average age across the industry. So I was coming into this industry where I was like, okay, well, I'm this super young brown kid. How am I going to get people to trust me with probably the most important decision of their lives when it comes to buying a house? Which is a perfect segue because of why we're here. Which was creating content. Cause I was like, that's the only way I'm going to be able to communicate that I know what I know. Right. That's the only way. Cause like, I'm not getting the face-to-face meetings. I'm not working at like a big bank where I like have this like little office or whatever. Like I have to find a way to, number one, be mature, right? Like I show that image when I am in person, but at the same time, like show people that I'm beyond my years as far as like my knowledge in this industry, because of the place where I was originally. Like I'd seen and done hundreds of loans. I had done the amount of loans that most people in their careers take years to get to. So I'm always grateful for that. So I had a lot of experience when I went independent. I just needed to find a way of showing that, because I was still like 26, 27 at that time. And content for me was the answer, right? If I wasn't going to get the face-to-face meetings where it was like, okay, well, what does this kid want? I was going to do it through video and just become that guy that people knew. It's like, oh, this guy knows his shit. Yes, exactly. Well, and especially now, I mean, it's a great investment for yourself, because now we're getting to this stage where our peers are now buying houses. Yeah. They're now buying property. They're now investing. Right? Like people are getting to that stage. People who are our age are getting to that stage in life where they're like, I want to do something with my money and not just spend it all. Mm-hmm. And so where else are they going to go? Like we're not going to go and find a loan officer or a realtor, really like the way that our parents did. We're going to use the tools that are available to us and that we're comfortable with in YouTube, in social media. So for you to make that investment and get started, I think, it's only going to continue reaping rewards for you, going into the future here. But tell me about like the initial start to like creating content for yourself. What did that look like? I mean, were you filming just initially on your phone, or were you jumping into buying gear and equipment, right away off the bat? What did it look like for you?
Yeah, no, definitely I have a gear addiction. So it's definitely jumping in and buying stuff, from day one. It all really started, which I think like 90% of like content creators can agree with these days, is like, it started with somebody sending me a Gary Vee video. Don't remember which one it was. Don't remember when it was. Don't remember who it was who sent me it. But like that, like just like launched me down the rabbit hole of like, I can create content. Like this guy's telling me like how important it is. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. All of his stuff super educational, entertaining. So I was like, I could do that, right? As 40-something-year-old guy from New York's making I can make content. Sure, why not? So went straight down the rabbit hole, started creating. All my early stuff was garbage. But it was fun.
What
it was
were you
fun
posting to mainly? Just
YouTube? First, YouTube and Facebook was like the beginning of it. I launched it as, I wanted to call it the Minute Mortgage Show. I was like, I'm going to give everybody like all this mortgage information in like a minute or less. I never had done that up until like Instagram, until Reels and TikTok became a thing where like I was absolutely limited to a minute or less. Literally none of my episodes was a minute, or less. So it was kind of like the running joke, like the kind of more than definitely a few minutes mortgage show. But Minute Mortgage, it was something that stuck. I knew that I struck on something when like my friends like kind of like made fun of me, like in like, hey, what's up? It's the Minute Mortgage Show. And I was like, haha, you remembered it. So
Yes, exactly. They remembered. If they weren't even talking about it, then clearly you wouldn't have been making an impression. But the fact that they knew, that's your small seed audience right there.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed. Once I knew, like my friends were kind of like mini roasting me about it, I was like, number one, the name's good because you remembered it. Number two, you remembered it enough, like, because I got your attention somehow. So like, okay, cool. Like, where do I go from here? Right? Like, I don't brand myself necessarily as a Minute Mortgage on other than on TikTok, because it's like just like a cute handle to have. I've really pivoted to branding myself just with my name to give me more flexibility for the rest of my life. And plus I have a unique name. Like growing up, I hated my name because it's like, why would my parents name me Caton? Why can't they be like Michael or David or Jonathan or like anything else? Like I was
Jonathan's not that great, man. Everyone misspells my name all the time, bro.
Yeah,
like,
right.
They're always spelling it with an O and instead of an A at the end. It's
Jonathan.
It's not as it's not as great as you might think.
No, but it was like, but like for me, like I was like Caton, like first of all, no one can pronounce it when they read it initially. So, because it's a C instead of a hard K. So I was like, you guys kind of failed there. It's a mix of my mom and dad. My mom named Kathy. My father's name's Aaron. Caton. It's like Benifer, but whatever. But like, as I grew up, I was like, this is like my like unique thing. Like, very few people. I thought I was the only one. I actually like went on Instagram. There's more people. We have a group chat of all the Catons on Instagram. It's fun. But like realizing like that was like my unique thing, other than like the fact that I'm like this young brown kid talking about mortgages on the internet. Like I was like, I'm just going to go all in on the things that like make me unique at the end of the day.
Cool. Very cool. So in terms of figuring out your process of creating content, I imagine this is still like an ongoing thing where you're refining, especially as the platforms evolve and change, right?
Yeah.
Like it's now one of the things I do want to talk to you more about is like placing more of an emphasis and spending more time on creating short form content and how you go about doing that. But I guess how has your process of creating content evolved throughout the last few years? Yeah.
When I first got started, it was more of like quick news update type stuff of like what's going on in the market. Cause that was like easy for me to do. I could just like pull from articles and just regurgitate information. Eventually I wanted to start doing more educational stuff. I tried writing full scripts, like word for word, but that was exhausting. So I pivoted to just like quick outlines and just like more or less freeballing it on camera, which is still more or less what I do today. But short form content was where it got interesting because it was like, for the most part, my content had been in like the 8 to like 10-minute range because of YouTube. You want to get as much context out there as possible. Watch time was like a big metric. So like having that watch time on YouTube was big for me. So figuring out how to like make a concept span 8 minutes was like the main challenge, and was actually pretty easy because you could stuff information as much as you needed. But the challenge was when TikTok and, Instagram Reels came out. Okay, how do I fit this really big, complicated concept into like 30 seconds or less? So it really just became a matter of, okay, what are you trying to talk about? Now make it stupid. Now make it stupider. Now make it even stupider than that. And then that's what you're going to shoot for the video. Because the reality is like people's attention spans are so slow, or like so small, right? At this point, it used to be, you had to get them in the first like minute. Then it was like 30 seconds. Then it was 15 seconds. Now it's like, if you don't get me in like the first like 3 milliseconds, I'm just swiping right up. Like, I don't care. So like having to think about all those things and really like plan, for a video that's literally just going to be like 20 seconds long is definitely a challenge, but it's actually so much more fun for me now doing that than doing like the long form content. Long form content's exhausting because like you're there for like an hour under your light and you're shooting and you're going through all your different takes. Like short form's fun because I can just like write out a script and then just like shoot it, send it off, and I can like bang out like 10 of those in the same time it took me to make one YouTube video.
Yeah. Well, is there a lot of, it sounds like, and let me know if this is a wrong, perception here of this, but it sounds like there's a lot of rewriting too, because you have, especially with the concepts that you're trying to teach people. This is complex stuff.
It's
when it
really,
comes to, like how much money do you put down? Do you want to get a conventional mortgage or a jumbo loan or an adjustable rate mortgage? So how do you, is there a lot of rewriting to get it down to that point where it's now compressed to where it can be consumed in 20 seconds or less, but it's still teaches,
valuable. Yeah.
It's still valuable.
Yeah, no, it's yes, a lot of rewrites for sure. I'll write out like the general idea of like what I'm trying to say, and then I'll start hacking away at it. Like cut this out, cut this out, cut this out. Because what I realized also, the beauty of short form content, especially with like platforms like TikTok where you can like reply with a video, is you don't have to give them everything. Right? You don't have to make them fully understand a concept in that 20 seconds. You just have to teach them one thing. Right? If I can teach them one thing, but then open up their mind to questions, then they can start going down the rabbit hole themselves. Then they can start going to the comments and start asking questions, and I can start answering them. And then that becomes my idea for my next video is, okay, cool. They asked this specific question on that. Now I can break down that concept in another 20-second video, and then another one, and then another one. And it just keeps on going and building upon itself. Right. So what I realized is I'm not trying to fit like this huge, massive concept. Like mortgage is convoluted on purpose. It just is what it is. Like I'm not trying to fit it all into there. I'm just trying to get that one thing that's going to be the most valuable to them and leave it open-ended and expect the questions there, because then that's how I'm going to get the engagement from them, and invite them into a deeper conversation.
Great. Wow. Yeah. That's a really interesting look and fascinating look at how you think about creating your content. I wanted to touch base too on, the idea of being able to create this like several pieces of short form content in the same amount of time that it would take for you to make one long form piece of content. Now, when you do that, is it almost like creating those 10 pieces of say TikToks or Instagram Reels type videos? Is it almost like you're creating chapters of a longer form YouTube video that you then just distribute in TikTok or Instagram Reel form? Yeah,
kind of. Sometimes I'll do like different topics like that I want to talk about. Sometimes I'll do like one, but then like I'll like segment it up into like different things. So that way, like when people eventually ask the question, I just like, here's the video for that because I already shot it. Or like I'll make like 5 versions of like the same thing, just kind of explaining it in a different way. Right. Because things will resonate with people differently depending on like how you explain it, right? Or like the way you word things. And that's kind of an unlock that I got from one of these TikTok creators too, is kind of like, you know, shoot a video 3 different ways. Like, you know, like you do one like just like a talking head explanation video, or maybe you do one where like it's just like the viral sound and like pointing to stuff. Like there's different ways to communicate the concepts, and understanding that not everyone will resonate with that exact same one. So kind of thinking consciously about the end user, understanding that they might not have understood it this way, but they might understand it this other way, and kind of planning ahead for that. Right. I think that's like been a really major unlock. That's been allowed me to resonate with more people too.
Yeah. And that's where it's cool that you think that way and you were inspired. But who was that TikTok creator that you...
I don't remember. Literally, TikTok nature of the platform. Like I saw it, I was like, that's so smart.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, where'd it go?
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, it's very much resonates with me from my own days working in news radio. For people out there who don't know, at one point in my career, I worked in news in Sacramento. And one of the things that I had learned is that a reporter would have to file 2 or 3 stories a day, but they would have to make 2 different versions of the story, because you would run one version 1 hour, and then you'd run the alternate version the next hour, and then you'd run the original version the third hour, so that the audience is not hearing the same exact thing. And a lot of people, they struggle with like trying to figure out, well, what concepts do I come up with? I've already exhausted everything that I had on my idea list. Well, why not just do those ideas again, but in a different way, like rewrite the script or use a different example, like what you're talking about.
Right. And what's great too is like your most loyal followers, like even, you know, for news radio, right? The people just watch it. Like, I don't think your most like loyal fans are going to get even mad if they see the same piece of content twice. No. Maybe they won't even remember because it's so much information overload. Like if I posted a video that I posted 3 months ago, I don't think my audience would bat an eye. And especially with the nature of like how the algorithm is pushing, like I think for most of my content, according to like what I see, like my content's being watched by like 95% new audience. Like it's only like 5% of my existing following that's actually seeing my stuff. So the reality is like reposting your old content, like even just not even like reshooting it in a different way, like literally just grabbing it and reposting it from 3 months ago. Like most people won't even know the difference at the end of the day, because information is coming so quickly to us and there's so much of it. Like I could eat the same meal that I ate like 3 months ago and I'd be like, oh, this is great. I've never had this. Like, you know, like that's like that's the reality of it. like that's just where we're at as a society, is like, there's just so much information and so much coming to us all at the same time. Like the reality, that's just the reality of it. Like how many times have you met the same person for the first time? Like in passing, like, oh, hey, like, oh, do I know you from somewhere? No, I don't think we've met. And like, I've done that with like the same person like 4 times until we actually like really know each other. It's the same thing with content.
Exactly. Yeah. Like even when you're having conversations with those people, I mean, maybe when you're making a new friend or getting to know somebody, you'll end up talking about a lot of the same things that you might have talked about the last time you hung out with them. And you may have just forgotten that, oh, we already had like an in-depth conversation about this. And it's not like somebody is, you know, most people I think are quite forgiving of that. They don't think like, oh, wow, this person doesn't remember what we talked about before. But it's like what you're saying in regards to creators, like for example, I really appreciate and admire the work Tim Ferriss has done throughout the years, like his books and his podcast, and there are so many concepts that he repeats over and over and over and over again. And they brings them up with like different guests. Yeah. And I don't feel like it's, it's annoying to me that he's talking about the same thing. If anything, it's reinforcing the idea in my mind. And then it becomes like a foundational principle in my own brain, and probably the same thing again, especially with mortgages for you. I mean, this is not easy stuff for people to understand. So the more you can hammer it home is going to make people, better equipped to go into the home buying process, as opposed to going into it totally blind. Right.
And you'll probably resonate with this too, right? Like with all those kinds of things, like maybe the first time that you posted that piece of content, that person wasn't like ready to receive it. right?
Yes.
Like they weren't in a place where they needed that information. So by withholding that information because, oh, I already posted it before, you're actually doing them a disservice, because what if, you're 3-4 months down the road and now they're in a place where they're receptive to that information and needing it, and you just didn't post it. Well, you missed out on an opportunity with them. Right. So by going back to your old content and recycling it and repurposing it and shooting in different ways, you're reaching that same audience, but maybe you're reaching them now that they're at a place to actually receive it, versus before they were just like, well, that doesn't apply to me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I do want to touch on as well, Caton, just, for full disclosure for everybody here, Caton is actually a client of ours at Video Husky. He's been using us for, a few months now. He's actually used us before with a previous colleague of his. But I would love to know, and it would be great for the audience to hear, how you've managed to figure out a workflow that works with us at Video Husky. Because to be totally frank with you, for us as a company, we have still been trying to evolve and learn how to execute and create short form content in a very effective and efficient manner. We've been tinkering around with it a lot because it's become such a huge emphasis for most creators and businesses these days because of the growth of TikTok and all these other platforms. So I'm just wondering what has worked for you in terms of being able to leverage us to create that kind of video for yourself.
Yeah. I think number one, being able to leverage the service in general has been huge, because it frees up time. Like, I still have like that perfectionist in me that wants to like tinker with the video as much as possible, especially because like I like get really into tech. So I'm like, I want to download all the shiny objects and all the different kinds of software and perfect the color. Like I get too in the weeds because that's just how I am. So having a service like this where I can just create and like let them handle like that side of the creative process is phenomenal, because I can just focus on creating and writing new content. But like as far as workflow, the thing that I figured out is the thing that I do, at least, is I'll like shoot one long continuous video where I'll shoot like probably like 5 to 6 different like shorts or reels or TikToks like in the same video, and I'll talk to my editor like in the video. I'll be like, not that one, or okay, here's the next one, kind of thing, so that I'm kind of like giving them like my notes as I'm going through it, and then just sending that one long video. It'll probably be like 30 minutes long, and then like have them cut that down into like 8 or however many different short form things, and then they'll send it over to me and review in like one long thing, so that I can just be like, okay, this one was good, this one I need a little tweak here, this one here. So that way at the end of it, all they have to do is just select the portions that I need and export it, or just send me the whole thing and I'll cut it down myself, whatever works. But that's been how I've been able to execute a little bit easier on the short form stuff, just because of the nature of like the revision process.
Yeah.
Which is totally understandable. There's a time difference. That's just something that we're gonna have to navigate, right? That just comes with the territory. And I'm fine with it, honestly. So by doing it that way, where I can effectively get 6 videos out of one request, and they're all short form anyways, I feel has been the most effective way to get my short form content out. Cause really, I shoot like 5 videos in one like 30-minute video. That's my week's worth of content. I'm done in one day, versus having to send one short video and then go through the review process, and that's a day. There's another one, and that's another day. By doing it that way, I get it all done in one day or 2 days, depending on how many revisions, versus having to wait one video every single like 2 days, essentially.
Yeah. Now, how often are you posting? Or do you have some sort of, are you married to some sort of idea of like, this is how much you should post? Or does it, do you have like the variability in that? Flexibility? I
have the variability because I think what's important as a content creator is sustainability, right? I think we all get burnout at some point. Mm-hmm. So what I try to do is I batch, so that way if I'm just not feeling it, right? If there's like a week where I'm not feeling it in front of the camera, like I can just not film, and I have my batch of content that I can just here we go. All right, here's your content for the week, guys. Not really feeling it this week. Because I think that's huge, especially with like the last 2 years that we had, right? Like there was a lot of shit that we were all going through. We weren't all feeling our best selves, and it's very hard to. You can see that too, like in media, like when somebody's not at their best self and delivering their best stuff, that comes across through media. So having that batch content available, is great. I don't like stick to you got to post 5 times a day at these particular times. Like I'll pay attention to like times because I think that's important to an extent. Like 10 to 12 a.m. or 12 to 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. has been like a sweet spot for like posting for me. But no, I'm not married to like a perfect schedule of like, I need to post X amount of times a day every single day. Like if I don't post today, then whatever, I didn't post today. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Cause you'll post eventually. I'll
post eventually. It's there. The video's there. But I'm not feeling like it today. You know, like I think sustainability as a creator, like figure out what works for you too. Like, and build up as you get there. But I think that's a huge part because when I tried to do that, you know, stick to a hard schedule, like it would just exhaust me. So I don't want to be in a place where I dread the thing that I like.
Yes. And I feel like that's something that a lot of creators overlook is that, you know, it's both a gift and a curse that you can actually create your own schedule. Mm-hmm. Like you're the boss here. You don't necessarily, these are like best practices. It's not like hard and fast rules that you have to follow. I mean,
right. You're never going to grow if you don't post 20 times a day. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think if anything, it's like taking away what is like the first principle from that idea. And really what it is if you're posting more frequently, you're essentially loading up more bullets in your chamber and taking more shots. You know, you're shooting in volume. And so, of course, like in shooting in volume, you're going to have more opportunities to hit the bullseye. Yeah. But then your shooting percentage is still going to be pretty low. Like most of them aren't going to hit. And one of them may like bring you a ton of views. But, you know, if it ends up burning you out in the process, I don't know if that's necessarily worth it. So
right.
It's, and what you're talking about too, it's piquing my curiosity about trying to connect these worlds that you're in, right? Like you are a mortgage lender and buying a house is an investment. But at the same time, creating content and trying to have that be a sustainable platform yourself, you kind of have to have an investor's mentality. You have to think long term of like, how can I set up systems that will allow me to do this for the long haul rather than like get immediate gratification. So I'm wondering if that's something that's even crossed your mind as well when you've thought about, creating content and creating video online.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, marketing in general is an investment, right? Like the gear that we have, the time that we spend, it's all an investment. And like people will be like, oh, like you're creating all this content, like, why don't you go spend time prospecting? I'm like, I am prospecting. Like I'm putting myself in front of 6,000 people a day. Like, how many doors can I knock in a day's time versus how many people that I can reach in a 20-second video? Like, I'm going to do the 20-second video every single time. And I'm consciously thinking about like, how can I make this more sustainable for me, right? As my business grows, like, what am I going to need next, right? I'm going to need like another loan officer to like help me juggle the volume as I get busier. Am I going to need, you know, like a full-time video creator so that I'm not the one shooting these videos? Like I could just like sit down in an office, bang them out, leave and go do whatever else I need to do. Like those are the things that I'm thinking about, you know, at the next level for this. And I always kind of want to have that capacity before I need it versus pivoting once I'm like overloaded. Right. So like those are the things I'm thinking about a lot. It's like, okay, where's the next investment? Where am I going to spend the next amount of money or time, to get me to that next level before I'm there?
Now, what does tell if you're open to sharing this? I'm curious about what the lead gen has been like for yourself in terms of people coming to you and actually saying, "Hey, I want you to be my lender," or what do you have to offer? I imagine, you know, again, with looking at your following right now, it's not like you have 1 million subscribers, but because you're leveraging these new channels that these platforms obviously are trying to get creators to utilize more, because more usage of them turns into more time spent on their platforms rather than elsewhere. You're able to reach, like you said, 6,000 people watching your reel. So I guess, yeah, just talk about that if you can in terms of like the inbound and what this has done for your business.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been huge. It's definitely one of the reasons why, like, I realized that I needed to invest in like a video editor because I want to put out more content. I mean, I'd say probably 25% of my business last year was funded directly from a social media source, whether it was YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram. I think I want to be, I'm on pace to probably have more than half of that this year be from these platforms. I mean, just today I got a inquiry. Somebody went into my calendar and scheduled a calendar appointment with me. I've never talked to this person ever. And I got an appointment with them at 12:30 today. And like, that's the beauty of it, right? Like I don't have to have like these long salesy conversations. Like people will just reach out, on their own and schedule appointments. So like from a lead gen and from an income standpoint, like it's been so helpful, in growing my business. And like as a loan officer, usually we get our business from like our referral partners, from our realtors, because realtors are like the face of the industry, right? When you think about buying a home, I need to hire a real estate agent. I'll figure out the financing later. And the real estate agent will be like, oh, here's my lender. Right. So like for majority of like my career, it's been real estate agents, providing me business. And through this content, actually, I've been able to reach more real estate agents who are interested in working with me. So that's cool too, right? Like not only do I have like actual clients coming to me, who want a mortgage, I also have real estate agents who were reaching out to me like, oh my God, I love what you're doing. I want to do stuff like that too. Let's network. I'll send you business. I'll try to get, my buyers to work with you. And I'm like, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I didn't have to do anything for them other than just post really good content. Like, cause before it was like, you have to beg over like a cup of coffee or dinner or whatever they wanted to even get their attention. And now I have them coming to me, initiating those conversations. And now I'm able to provide them with something more valuable too, whether it's, help with their content, help with, their clients, or even giving them clients that come to me on social media that don't have a real estate agent yet. So no, it's been incredible. I never thought that. Well, I mean, I knew that like this would work when I first started doing it. I just didn't realize like how well it would work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like it's created this virtuous cycle for yourself where like these different elements or aspects are all kind of interacting at play and feeding the beast, so to speak. It just keeps going and going. That's really cool. Very cool stuff there. I also want to ask you about being able to, I guess, prevent burnout. What are some other tips or advice, or even just examples from your own experience that you would share with other creators, regardless of whatever niche they're in, that have helped you, beyond like creating content in batch to deal with moments of like, okay, this is getting hard right now. Like, and I can't deal with having to make videos today.
Right. I mean, definitely giving yourself the time to like be in a space to make it. Like, I try to go into each week kind of knowing like, okay, like Monday is when I'll like kind of start scripting out some videos, and like it'll either be like Tuesday or Wednesday where I'll shoot them. So that way I can send them to the editor, have them edited by the end of the week, and I'll be good. And I try to follow that schedule as much as I can. Obviously things come up, things happen. Batching the content is huge. Like if you're in a place where you can just be like, the only thing I'm going to do today is create content, then that's great, because then you could just create a ton of content in that one day, and then you just have stuff to pull from. Whether you're editing it yourself or you're sending it to an editor, you have like this batch of content that's just ready to be edited at some point in time, and you can just post that whenever you need to. Also just giving yourself the freedom to like just not post content, right? Like we were talking about, just if you don't feel like it, don't. No one's going to kill you at it. Getting out of the house too, right? Like, especially like the last 2 years, like I have a dog, like going on walks with my dog is super great because I get to breathe fresh air, get to walk around a little bit, kind of free your mind from the distractions. Unplugging for sure. Unplugging and unfollowing anything that doesn't like bring you joy too, because it's easy, like, especially as a small creator, to kind of like be like, oh, why does that person have so many more views? Like, I feel like I'm so much better than them or whatever. Like, unplugging yourself from that negativity and that cynicism, is super important, right? If it doesn't bring you joy, if it doesn't help you get to where you want to be, like, just unfollow it. Like, you don't need that in your life. Like, it's, even if it's like a friend, like whatever, like you need that like mental clarity to be able to move yourself forward as a creator.
For sure. Well, as we get closer to wrapping up this conversation, Caton, I want to know also about where you think things will go in the future for you. I mean, what plans you have. You've touched on it a little bit here as far as, you're already starting to think ahead, maybe even like outsourcing the video creation itself of having like another on-person personality or on camera personality handling, the videos for you, shooting the videos for you. But yeah, I guess where would you like to be with your video content, I guess, going down the line?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love creating content. I definitely can see myself still being like the on-screen personality for it. I think the thing that I want to do the most, honestly, is as I build a team of loan officers to like work with me and for me, is also help them build their brands too, right? Cause I know it works. I've done it for myself at this point. Just kind of, that kind of giving back, like I wish I had somebody there to tell me like how good this could have been. Cause if I did this sooner at the scale that I'm doing it at, I think my career would have been in a completely different place. So being able to kind of give that back, so that way I can have like more time to myself to do other things, be less in the mortgage business and be more in the creative space. I think I can see myself being more a full-time content creator than I can being a full-time loan officer. Like, not to say that being a loan officer isn't fun and rewarding, and I'll always do loans. I just think that the upside of just being able to create content around the things that I'm passionate about, whether that's going to continue to be mortgage and real estate, whether it's just like my own personal brand or whatever that might be in the future. I think content creation is always going to be a part of that, regardless of what industry that I'm in.
Gotcha. So maybe at some point you are going to be peers with Graham Stephan or something,
right?
At some stage.
That would be cool. No, that'd be a lot of fun. But I also am conscious enough to know that like I'm not doing it for that purpose too, right? Because if you're doing it for that purpose, like we talked about, like then you're just derailing the whole thing. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. So I know that that's going to be a longer process. I'm not in love with the celebrity of all that what that brings. I've really become a little bit more confident and comfortable with being in love with the process of it all. It's so cheesy. When I first heard from Gary, I'm like, be in love with the process, the journey. I'm like, that's cute. Like, I need money now. Like, I'm broke, Gary. Stop selling me NFTs. I need money. But then you realize, like, I think the thing that does resonate with me now is like being happy is like the goal, right? And regardless of what like income that looks like, right? Like I've grown income wise through the content, and I realized like I'm more happy with creating the content and like the life that it gives me, not necessarily the money that it brings me, right? The money's great. It helps fuel a lot of the other things, and we'll continue to do that. But I'm really more interested now in like the impact that I can have on this industry and for my family too.
Yeah. I wonder too, if, your views on fame and what it, like the negative downsides to it, and also the positives have been colored by just your dad's own experience, because you've probably seen what, that can do at times when, it seems like it's all great on the surface, but dealing with that pressure and the expectations of what people assume or perceive you to be, you got to see that firsthand of how your dad dealt with that behind the scenes versus like what his fans have, maybe had seen, on the front side of things. So I was just curious if that was something also that kind of helped you build that mentality.
I think that's actually something that I didn't even realize, right? Kind of growing up in it. Because like at the end of the day, we're like still human beings. Like I was just having this conversation the other day. Like, I don't know like how like celebrities can like go through these things. Like, like when people get mad at them because like, oh, like they're done signing autographs for the day, and like people get mad and like, they're like, oh, they're a jerk. They don't care about their fans. And like burnout's real. Like we're still human beings. We're not like robots that can just like do all these things all the time. Like, sure, some people are built like that, like fantastic for them. But like understanding consciously like what your limits are and where your boundaries are as like a human being first, regardless of what you do, like as a creator or anything else. Like, I think those are super important because if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of everything else around you.
Well said. Well said. Well, Caton, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. As we close things out, just let everybody know where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah. Just by name on pretty much every social media platform. Caton Del Rosario, CatonDelRosario. Yes, I rehearsed that because I say it a lot. On TikTok, it's a little bit different at Minute Mortgage. But that's it. Feel free to connect with me if you have any questions. I'm an open book. I'm glad to help anyone out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky. As always, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on our YouTube channel or find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. And make sure to leave us a review if you enjoyed this episode. We are always looking for feedback for how we can improve. Gotta go and thank my guy Gio Fernandez for all the work that he is doing producing this show, as well as Paulo Lopez on graphics. And just a reminder to all of you, if you are looking to get your videos edited to look just like this, then visit videohusky.com to learn more. I'll see you next time on another episode of the Videocraft Show presented by Video Husky.